Hello, this is me, also known as Mary Pat Campbell, your friendly life actuary. And here I have a gift for you. It's a revised spreadsheet. There were issues with the prior spreadsheet, but also I've got an extra year of data here now. It's provisional 2023 data. Today, all I'm going to do is a very quick walkthrough of this spreadsheet. I'm not going to do any interpretation, not going to talk about trends or anything. Just how this works. Nothing is locked down in this spreadsheet. Actually, I was just going to show you, let me right click. There are some hidden sheets. Go unhide them if you want to. I just didn't want to, mess up the interaction with the spreadsheet. I just wanted to have what you really needed to see. There are these three tabs: age group total trend, which is the all-cause death, all the deaths; age group select COD, which is for cause of death. So that's, you can look at one cause of death and get all the stats. Weights for age adjusted rates. I just put that in there for the curious, because there are some formulas that do depend. You can hide that tab if you want, but if you're interested in how I do the weighted average for some of the aggregated weights here. And then there's a documentation tab, which will list all the tabs in this spreadsheet, and some links to where I got the data from and that sort of thing. So let's just jump into it. The deaths, okay, age group total trend, all the deaths, all causes, no matter what, from 1999 to 2023. From 1999 to 2022, this is the finalized data. So that's for death counts. At the top, I have the death counts by these age groups, and these are called the 10-year age groups that the CDC uses. Obviously, for under age 15, these aren't in 10-year groupings, and for 85 plus, that's not a 10-year grouping either. But this is the standard way they group them. I have, and you can see there's X lookups that are done here from the data draws I took from CDC Wonder. And year to year, you have the counts aggregated up for these groups, or I'm just doing lookups. And then at the end of each of these, there's a spark line. Spark lines are these itty bitty, they're small multiples of charts that live in Excel cells. I have set the minimum for each of these spark lines at 0, and then the maximum is relative for each of these. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to see anything at all. And I use for the, for children, compared to the very large numbers that are for 85 plus years. So it's just so that you can kind of see a trend all in one go, rather than try to put it in a graph. Now, there's a lot of numbers here, and I'm going to address that in a moment. To the right, and this is true for each of these sets, and I'm not going to show it for the rest of them, they all have this block to the right. There's a year-over-year percentage change, and you can see it's kind of pinky here. That's because I'm using conditional formatting, using automatic, where it goes from white for the lowest to red for the highest, and you can see the highest is in 2020, but the lowest actually occurs in 2022, as you have the largest drops in 2022 from the peak of deaths in 2021. Again, not going to interpret any of this. So that's death counts is the first section, but then we get to death rates, which is the second section. And I'll just make a comment, by the way, I did do freeze panes on this. If you find that to be a pain in the butt, unfreeze panes if you want. I just, find it easy when you have big tables of numbers like this to freeze panes so that I can navigate around more easily. So death rates are quoted per 100,000 people per year. That's a standard way of quoting it. We don't do percentages. I do that in my ranking tables, but that's for me being nice. Most of the time we do it per 100,000, and that's because, look here, 5 to 14 years. The rates are so low. We want to have some whole numbers in here. That's why we do it per 100,000. It is the meaningful unit for talking about mortality rates. For rates, I use a line for a spark line instead of columns. So for counts, I use columns, and for rates, I use spark lines to get the general trend. Again, for the spark lines, I set as their base, or the lowest point, as 0, and each of them has a relative maximum. So whatever the peak for that line is going to be at the max. And that wasn't necessarily, and you can see this here with infant mortality, that's not necessarily the pandemic year. Now, for the bottom section, I'm actually kind of repeating the information that is above, but I'm aggregating it into 5 groups because there's so many age groups above. Having listened to some key stakeholders, I have combined different age groups into 5 age groups. So basically youngins, so under age 25, 25 to 44 years old, or young adults, 45 to 64 years old, or middle-aged folks, 65 to 84 years old, so younger seniors, and then 85 plus years old, so the rather old people. And so that makes it for 5 groups to track. And I decided, there is some steepness in mortality across those age buckets, but it's not too steep. The spark lines are not that interesting to look at, not for overall, all ages. But the death rates can be interesting to look, and you can see how steep that is going from age group to age group when I just crush it down to 5. But just to let you know, the approach I take is I'm doing an age-adjusted approach, and that's why the weights for the age-adjusted rates is there in the tab, so you can see what those weights I use are. They come from the CDC. It's using standardized year 2000 population, and they come up with a different set of weights every 30 years based on approximately the distribution of ages in the population in the US from that year. And I use weighted averages. I kind of screwed up the formulas from the last spreadsheet I did. Sorry about that. Whoops. I set up one formula correct and then screwed up in a copy paste and didn't adjust. And that's where that error came from. But I also added the overall age-adjusted death rate, which is where I collapse all the death rates into a single number for a year. This is the inverse, kind of period life expectancy. So I prefer age-adjusted death rates, being an actuary. I find the life expectancy, period life expectancy, to be very misleading in many ways. But age-adjusted death rates can also mislead in other ways. So this is the tab that is fun, or maybe not fun, depending on your point of view. It's got all of the same sections. It's got deaths, death rates, deaths aggregated, deaths aggregated, death rates aggregated, and the overall age-adjusted death rate. The difference is this is not all cause. This is choose the cause of death. And it's got a pull down. So, and make sure it's the right one. It's got the light blue background. Now, these causes of death are coming from the 113 CDC cause of death rankable causes. And it's not just rankable causes. The rankable causes have this hashtag next to it. I'm going to pick, let me not pick accidents. I'll pick accidents in a moment, but diseases of heart, which is the top cause of death. And I'm just picking it because it's going to be numerous, and every group is going to have that. So we have the death rates, the aggregated, and aggregated per 100K. So, I'm going to go over to the spark line, and you can see what that looks like, and you might think, what the heck is going on here? I'm not going to tell you. So that's one cause of death you can see, and it's a major cause. The rankable causes of death, I don't get to determine them, and you'll see that it has the ICD codes next to it. And that's all of them that are aggregated together for this cause. when they do like top 10 causes of death and they rank them, these are the causes that are selected from. Now, I do want to pick accidents because this is where the warning comes in, and it has to do with 2023. 2023 is provisional and partial. The numbers for 2023 for external causes of death are definitely too low because for external causes of death, it's censored for 6 months after those deaths occur, period. We do have a lot of those deaths in, but they're not all in yet. There's still going to be an undercount. And so if you see a drop in these accidents or homicides or suicides, it's partly because of the censorship. So I'm missing at least 1, if not 2 months of these deaths. So you can't think that, they dropped off. When it's all cause, it's in there. But when we split them out by cause, it's still going to be an undercount. So for all causes death, a lot of them, most of them are in there. There's still going to be a little under counting. So for suicide and I'm sorry, if you're looking for homicide is assault. There we go. So that's homicide. Homicide is going to, that number is going to go up compared to what you're seeing here. And then suicide as well. And I'm sorry, yes, these are going to have the, let's see, it's, if I remember correctly, yes, intentional self-harm. I am sorry. And another thing I want to show you here, you see these blank cells. That is because anytime there is fewer than 10 deaths for a particular cell, I am given nothing from the database. Doesn't mean there are 0 deaths there, but there may be. It's because of privacy concern. Anytime there's fewer than 10 deaths, they're not going to give me that information. So it's not just a case of suicide. Let me find something else that I know is going to be low. So malignant neoplasm of, say, ovary. Okay. So ovarian cancer, below a certain age, you're not really going to see a lot. So it's going to be empty. So that's just how that works. I just want you to be aware of how the data works if you play around with this spreadsheet. One of the things to note about that is that what will happen, and so you can see it here. This is actually a good example. Do not get overworked when you have an age group, so 15 to 24, so this is for ovarian cancer, where you have huge fluctuations because it's only a few people who die every year, and therefore the rates are going to fluctuate a lot. It makes it difficult to interpret annual differences. So I would not put much store in this. You have to aggregate at much bigger levels than annual statistics when you do something when it's a very rare situation. So when it's something that there are large numbers, so let me find something like major cardiovascular diseases. So those are huge numbers. You're going to have much smoother, not as much noise in the data. So that makes it easier to do some interpretations of what you see. So I'm going to put this out there. I'll drop a link. So I'm putting this up on YouTube as well. I'll link to the Substack post that this spreadsheet will be available on, that you can play with it. Again, you can do whatever you want with it. I'll go to the documentation tab just so you can see. I have the links. There's links of me in case you need to email me, yell at me, whatever. But also it's all coming from CDC Wonder, the original database. And you can unhide any of the tabs to look at the original data that I'm using. I'm just doing lookups from CDC Wonder downloads. That's it. And some very simple calculations. So enjoy.